All right, here we go. Welcome to TikTok Essentials for Schools, top tips for organic, paid, and social SEO. My name is David Kinnan. I am the Director of Business Development here at Higher Education Marketing, and I'm going to kick us off with a little bit of housekeeping. We do have a questions function. Please use the questions function. We may pick out some questions as we go if they're pertinent to the topic at hand. Otherwise, we will have a Q&A at the end, and we will use that questions function. If you have any other comments, go ahead and use the chat. And please note the session is being recorded. The slides and recording will be sent to you within 24 hours. Our presenters today are Alexander Nahai, Director of Paid Ads and Analytics at Higher Education Marketing, and Valentin Wimel, who's Social Media Manager at Higher Education Marketing. They are our TikTok masters. Before I hand it over to them, here is our agenda today. So we're going to address TikTok in the media. There's been lots of talk of TikTok lately and bans. We're going to address what that means and what we think. We'll talk about why your school needs TikTok, even despite those media reports and the bans. We'll talk about how potential students actually use TikTok and what this means for you. Then we'll go into specific TikTok marketing tips and best practices. We'll show you some examples, and we'll dive into running TikTok paid ads and give you some opportunities and tips. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Alex for our first poll.
Yeah, hey everybody. So before we get into the meat of our content today, we want to just open up with a question to find out where all of you are and your schools are with TikTok. So our question is, what sort of presence does your school have on TikTok? Do you have organic? Do you have paid ads? Do you have both, neither, or unsure? I guess, David, you're keeping a close eye on our poll over here.
Yeah, and we have the results in. So most of you are using TikTok organically.
Great.
41%, 6% paid, 29% are using both, 24% neither, and 0% unsure. So from that organic use, we can see that TikTok is already popular with our listeners today.
Oh, great. So it looks like we all have a bit of a head start already. Perfect. So before we get into, I guess, the main part again of our discussion, we just wanted to kind of take a minute to address the elephant in the room. So here in North America, Canada, USA in particular, I'm sure if you've been following the news, you've seen TikTok popping up in not such a nice light quite a bit recently. In particular, USA and Canada governments have actually banned the use of this on official government devices. So you cannot have this app on a phone issued by the government. Same time, a couple of the higher or Ivy League type universities have also banned this from staff devices. So it's not saying you can't have it on your personal, but on staff ones, you cannot have it. And even there's been some talk about public schools wanting to ban the device or the application as well. So the public school one, this is largely has to do with how addictive people are talking about the app being, how much time kids spend on there. In some cases, it's similar to what we saw with Facebook and Instagram in the past. So it's a bit more of the same sort of caution around, what age should students be on these applications, how much time should be spending. So that's largely, I think, a conversation for parents and internal school policies. But for the other two, which are a bit more sometimes alarming, we've had schools ask us, is TikTok going to be banned in the country? So we don't see any evidence of that. Largely what's going on, it looks like these are more IT matters. For instance, it does make sense that government devices should have a certain list of which applications you can or cannot put on a specific government phone. As you probably know, anytime you install an app, it asks for all kinds of permissions and access. And so there's always questions to raise around things like that. So TikTok, like a lot of other apps, does have things that accesses on your phone. And obviously, if there's very sensitive information, you might want to question what sort of apps you're letting use just for security purposes. So again, it looks like this is probably something, if you're concerned, you should talk to your IT departments at your schools with to see if there are applications on certain devices that maybe should not have these. But as far as it goes for personal devices, there doesn't seem to be any particular danger is what sometimes gets flipped around. It really just seems like other apps, the same as Facebook, same as anything else, you do have to give these apps some permission to use them. But even then, even considering some of these sort of caveats about it, the way it's being spoken in the media, taking that aside, we still do believe you should be on TikTok. I mean, most of you are right now. And primarily the reason why we say your school needs TikTok is because this is where most of your students either are right now or will be in the coming year, because this app is growing fast. So just to give you guys a bit of numbers about TikTok, in case you're wondering how many people are using this app, the last time we checked these numbers last week, it was at 1 billion worldwide, but we're growing at like we're seeing about 100 million new monthly app downloads. Every month, 100 million people are downloading this worldwide. So huge user base that's already growing very fast. By the end of the year, looking like we'll be over 2 billion users here. So not quite at Facebook's level, but certainly catching up right now. There's a bit of differences in terms of where most of these users are situated. It looks like at present, even though it's a worldwide app, Western countries and more developed nations tend to have a higher percentage of users. USA in particular, 138 million people in the States have TikTok on their phones and use it regularly. So that's definitely one of the main markets for users for here, but it's also very busy here in Canada and a lot of European countries as well, from what we're aware of. In terms of also these users, it's not just intermittent. 1 year on, since from February 2022, you see TikTok has seen triple the number of daily users. So people are using it a lot more and a lot more people. So this is really where people are flocking to nowadays. It's not to say that Facebook's become irrelevant, but certain ages and demographics are really flocking to this app. And so just to skip ahead, if you're wondering who was on TikTok, well, the perception often is that TikTok is a much younger social media, whereas Facebook is getting to be a bit more of an older crowd. So this is largely correct. It's not to say there's no older people on TikTok, but by and large, most users are in the student sort of demographic. So, and we took this, which I think is actually a larger percentage now, 63% of users are under the age 29. I think this morning when I was checking it might be as much as 70% now, and at least 40% of the users are in the 18 to 24 demographic. So this is really key, the amount of people on here in the sort of student age, often looking for higher education, just finishing high school, starting college, that area. Maybe even as much as half of all people are just in that part of their own like life journey, that stage right there. So they're looking for education, is that sort of the stage that they're at. So very much so. What's interesting also is that, as we've seen, TikTok is becoming also used as a search engine. So roughly 40% of users in this demographic say TikTok is their preferred search engine over Google. So that might come as a surprise to some of us who've been using Google since the dawn of time, it seems like at this point. But things are changing in video and social in particular, particularly by the younger generations. The demographics are really, gaining more usage in this sense. People are using text maybe less than they were, and they're relying more and more on video search results. Also, what's interesting is that students and people generally trust TikTok. So estimated 33% use it as a primary source of news. So they don't just go to Google News or, BBC or anything like that. They use TikTok as their primary way of finding news. And 26% of young adults in the USA regularly get their information from TikTok. So this suggests that a large percentage of people are using TikTok as their first source of information, also their source of trusted information. Um, so this is an interesting thing just to keep in mind, that TikTok is not just, as you probably realize, about sort of cute trending videos. We can actually have a lot more educational, informative content on it, and people are actually looking for this content, which is really good for schools looking to reach the target demographic. And so what do people get up to on this app? So obviously, I mean, there's a lot of these trending things that go on. People sort of do lip syncing, karaoke, things like that. There's a lot of original comedy sketches that people come to here for. There's also challenges they participate in. It could be, for different causes and awareness, or even just viral things going around. But also there's a large percentage of people that come here to look for sort of condensed educational content. What we mean by this is there's a bit of a growing trend on TikTok for people to have educational videos. So it could be short form videos about, some topic in history, about what it's like to work in a profession, about medical trivia, things like that. So there's a lot of producers on here bringing things that are informational and informative, and that's something that people really enjoy on TikTok, which is also be something that schools could be producing as well. But also what's important is that people, the way they find a lot of these videos is based on the interest algorithm. So TikTok's very good at getting people to find the videos that think they would be looking for, they want to enjoy or want to consume. So as all good search engines, it's really depends on the results. So if you're looking for something, can you find it easily? And TikTok is very impactful in this sense. So if you're producing content that people want to consume, there's a good chance they'll be able to find it on TikTok. Just going back again to get sort of statistics also. So TikTok at present looks like it's probably the app or the social media that people spend the most time on daily. If you look at Twitter, we have about, just under half an hour is the average time per user per day. YouTube's over an hour, but TikTok's over an hour and a half. So people that are on TikTok spend a lot of time on TikTok. So if you're wondering what your prospective students are, all these people in your demographic, your target audience, there's a good chance at any time of the day they might be on TikTok. So you certainly want to have content on there that you can actually reach them and engage with them. I guess lastly, for sort of our setting the stage here, we've done a webinar recently on some of the biggest trends to look out for in 2023. And so some of these are worth just reiterating. So some of the things that are particularly relevant to TikTok that we highlighted in the past is that one, video content is becoming the most engaging or effective form of brand engagement on social media. In our own sort of in-house data, we're seeing a lot of differences between video and images on posts on social media, and pretty much every case, video gets higher reach, higher engagement than any sort of static image. So TikTok as a video platform is really capitalizing on this. Also, we're seeing that social media is also being used as search engines. So again, Google is still the #1 search engine in the world, but sites like Instagram and TikTok are also really rapidly encroaching on this space. And thirdly, that people are really looking for something, I guess we can refer to it as authenticity or real people, content produced by familiar faces. So sometimes this is influencers on social media, they have a large following because it's the same person week to week, they get to trust them and know them. And this could also work really well for schools that have things like brand ambassadors or students, producing content for them. So people really engage quite well with sort of micro influencers in this sense. And a lot of polls from other agencies is that 89% of marketers want to increase their influencer budget in 2023. So if you're a school and you do have students of yours on TikTok that you're aware of, or maybe even some of these sort of local student ambassadors, you definitely want to leverage them on TikTok this year to produce some effective content. And from here, we're just going to hand it over to Valente, who will guide you through some organic content tips and practices.
All right, hi everyone. So organic content, what are the best practices on TikTok for school? Before I share with you some example, I'd just like to do a small reminder for some of you that may not know what is organic content. So when we refer to organic content, we refer basically to any unpaid content. So which can be posts, photos, videos, memes, stories, anything that all users share on social media. It's the difference between organic and paid. For paid, it refers to paid advertising, exposure obtained through the purchase of advertising space on social media. We also have another element, social SEO. Social SEO is the best practice of adding text-based feature, caption, hashtag, location to a post to help people browsing social platform easily to find specific content. It's also about combining social media and SEO technique to improve position in search, website traffic, and conversion. So on my end, I'm going to develop more the organic content aspect of TikTok. So when it comes to organic content for schools on TikTok, when we take a look at most of the schools that are on TikTok, a lot of them are using different type of content. And I'm going to share with you today some of the most often that we see on TikTok outcomes from school. So we have a lot of schools that share content created by student ambassadors. We have a lot of them that are sharing storytelling content. They're going to share also educational content. They're going to share content about diversity and inclusion. And they're also going to use TikTok trends for specific videos ideas. I'll show you some example in the next slide. So organic content ideas of student ambassador. As Alex mentioned, student ambassadors are a great way to to highlight your students and also your school. We see that more often schools are using student ambassador to create a personal connection with students, to also humanize the brand, to help get hyper local, especially when it comes to present the campus, to present also the neighborhood, to present the nice spot around the school where to study. It's also a great way to also build trust because the new generation, the young generation, the Gen Z tend to trust other students rather than to trust a traditional ad. So if you click Alex on the example, the social media ambassador, we see that schools tend to present an ambassador program on their website, and they highlight the advantage of being part of being an ambassador. It shows what are the the qualification to become an ambassador and what also are the advantage for the student to become an ambassador. For example, we see on this website from the Western Kentucky University that it can help build a resume experience. It can help develop and enhance professional skills in marketing, public relations, writing, public speaking, leadership. It's also a great opportunity to develop networking with faculty members, teachers, staff, and alumni. It's also an opportunity to attend university events for free. It's also a great opportunity to receive a letter of recommendation from the school or also receive some gear. So if you go back on the presentation, we have an example of a student ambassador video. Yes, if you can present it. So we can't really hear much the sound, but here we have an example of students that are presenting the campus. Yeah, if you go back on the slide, I just wanted to also highlight something else. It's great to have student ambassador, but it's also important to keep in mind that if you have student ambassador and if you let them have full control of your TikTok account, you may not have the complete control of the app, or also it can happen that ambassador student overshadow the brand. So I think it's important to have a balance in terms of content and have, yes, the student ambassadors, but also have different type of content, or also maybe in optional having multiple student ambassadors, not only one. So if you go on the next slide, we have storytelling organic content ideas. Storytelling are great content to use to evoke emotion, to be inspirational, to show also the uniqueness of your school. We have different examples here again. If you click on the first video, we have a TikTok from the Vanderbilt University, where we will have very different unique words that are representing what is Vanderbilt with a very trendy music. It's a great way to engage with your student and potential student. On the second video, you have another example where we see basically the best spot, the best coffee shop place where you could study around the campus. So it's a TikTok from the New York University. Storytelling, you can use it also to highlight your event at the school. For example, a graduation ceremony. It could be also a conference at the school. There are very many different ways to highlight your school by using video to share the story of your school. On the next slide, we have educational content. So as we mentioned earlier, yes, TikTok, it's about finding fun videos, very entertaining videos, but it's also about learning new things. The Gen Z tend to use TikTok first before Google to find information, to find a specific product, or eventually to find a potential schools. So here we have also different examples of educational content. On the first example from the University of Manchester, we have like some tips, for example, to write a dissertation. We can hear the music, but usually we add like a trendy music, and it's very fun and entertaining to watch. On the second video, you have another example where we see what do surgical technologists do. So we have different video shots of a class. It's a great opportunity to show how your class are happening, what the students are doing in class. So there are very different ways to create educational content. Sometimes you can involve the faculty members or the teachers to share their thought or their tips to succeed in a specific program. If you go on the next slide, we have also a lot of schools are sharing content about diversity and inclusion. The reason why is that also, again, it's important for especially the Gen Z to have clear idea of what's the mission of the school, what's the value. If they decide to choose your school, they want to know if they're going to study in a safe environment. They want to see if you are inclusive, how open you are to diversity. So we have here three examples. We have Chinese New Year celebration. We have another example from the University of California Women's History Month. We have another example from the University of Glasgow LGBT History Month. There are many events that you can include in your organic content. It could be Women's Day, Teachers Day, Black History Month, and many other events to highlight. On the next slide, now we have also TikTok trends. We see that some schools tend to check what other schools are doing and try to duplicate the content or to copy the content or the concept. So here we have an example of 3 different schools that uses the same code, which is having like a caption of the Google Earth and show the campus and show how unique is the campus in a fun way with a trendy music. All right. So if we go on the next slide, what's also very trendy, it's recycling or repurposed video content. Before TikTok, we see that most of the schools were using Facebook and mostly YouTube to share videos, very great videos that we can see, especially on YouTube from schools. But the only problem is that they tend to be very long. Sometimes it's more than 5-10 minutes and even more. Sometimes it's more than an hour. And what works on TikTok, it's short video. Users tend to scroll very fast on the app. So it's important to be short when it comes to create TikTok videos. So here we have an example of from the University of Toronto, where YouTube video were duplicated and adapted to TikTok with a specific caption, optimized caption with the location and hashtag. It's a great way to show your content already created to a new audience. So on the next slide, if ever you start on TikTok, there are specific days where you can share your videos to get more engagement. Friday is the day on average where the highest number of viewers are achieved on TikTok. And the day that video received the most comment is Tuesday, followed by Friday. So it's a good way to choose those days to start, but after all, it's by testing and by sharing more and more videos that you'll see when is the best time to share videos for your school. So on this slide now we have some do's and don'ts when it comes to share organic videos. What you should do is always try to leverage students to start in your content, highlight your school strengths, use popular sound and targeted hashtags, place on-screen text in an accessible area. This is very important because each platform is different. Like for example, TikTok versus Instagram, the elements are placed a bit differently. So we have a lot on call to action on TikTok on the right side, and we also have some space that is taken with the caption and the hashtag. So what we recommend usually is to add the text uh, on the video in the middle of the video to make sure that it's not hidden by a button from the app. It's good also to follow TikTok content trend. If you see that other schools are creating the same type of content, you should try to also follow that trend to gain more engagement. And also a must is that always add a short caption and include the location. What you should not do now is promoting advertising in the traditional sense. As we see, TikTok is about authenticity. It's about being natural. If we see that your video is too branded with a perfect images, perfect videos, it might not be you might have less engagement. 65% of TikTokers say personal looking videos from brand feels out of place. 71% says creator authenticity has motivated them to buy a product. Another thing to keep in mind, as I mentioned, videos on TikTok are pretty short. So the great way to start and to share videos is to not cover too many things in one video and to go straight to the point and to share really like the most impactful elements in a short amount of time. So yeah, so TikTok video shouldn't be more than 60 seconds.
Cool, thanks, Valentin. So we get into like the last parts of our presentation here. I'm going to be talking more specifically about TikTok ads. So I think this is relevant because based on the poll at the beginning, I think only 6% or not a very large portion of you actually are running ads right now on TikTok. And usually when we talk to schools about it, a lot of it is just like, one, is it worth it? Is this something we should even bother be doing? And I guess two, the other one is how do we even get started here? So that first part of this, why should you even consider it? So we've been doing some TikTok ads for the past couple months there. So we have a bit of results and some experiences with it we can share with you. But I guess first and foremost also is this is, as we said before, a massively growing platform. So again, one reason why you should advertise here, not just organically, but also paid advertising is your student demographics, people you're looking for are most likely on this platform. And if they're not right now, well, they should be, 100 million people are joining this every month. They're probably gonna be in one of these big rushes of people joining the platform. So just in terms of some ad results that we've seen, so in terms of cost per lead, so if we're using this for lead generation, we've seen that TikTok performs pretty similar to Meta and other social media. So we often get a fairly high volume of conversions for relatively low cost per lead with a high conversion rate, similar to some of these other platforms. So just some of these here, so $12 Canadian, almost $13 Canadian. We've seen similar results in a lot of things in similar markets for on Meta as well. So just on the main lead gen front for filling up the top of your funnel, it's fairly similar. It's also fairly cost effective and affordable if you want to just get lots of leads, get a big kickstart to your top of your funnel. So you can advertise for about $20 a day. TikTok recommends $1,500, sort of the base minimum per month. But there's a few ways around that. You can have a limited campaign and so forth. So it's not a huge investment to actually start advertising on here, and you most likely will be able to get some returns at a reasonable rate. Nevertheless, there's a few caveats we think, based on our experience, we should be sharing with people about the advertising here. So one, even though TikTok works similar to other social media platforms in terms of advertising, we really don't want to suggest this is the one you should replace all your platforms with. So TikTok is still young, it's still growing, it's exciting, but based on terms of quality of leads, I think things like Google ads, particularly search ads, are still the strongest ones we have out there. More established ones like Facebook, if you're getting good results there, don't stop doing that. Really, if you're established already and doing well but still need more volume, TikTok should be seen as that sort of third avenue and other area of growth, and not as a replacement right now. And part of the reason for this is that, I guess, part of to do with the platform, also social media. TikTok leads, often in terms of quality, are similar to other social media. So if you're running multiple channels in your advertising, for instance, Google search and Meta, you've probably seen that your Google leads are a bit more high intent because they typically are in the in-market stage of their journey. People searching for courses on Google are usually ready to start registering that day or take the first step. Whereas on Facebook, they might be interested in it, but maybe they're not ready to apply yet. They're still in that sort of information stage. So we've seen a lot of this on TikTok, that people express interest, become leads, but they're not necessarily at that same in-market step the way users might be on Google. So that's something to consider in mind, that if you do start collecting leads on Facebook, you're going to want to make sure you have a really good drip campaign, email campaign in place to really keep them engaged, because from the moment you sign up as a lead, they might not be ready yet. So you really want to keep them engaged, get them engaged on multiple touch points, and keep them thinking about you, so they don't forget. As an interesting thing too, we've talked to some schools running lead gen, and they said probably the number one thing they hear most often why a lead doesn't progress further the first time they contact them is that people they contact from TikTok were actually not expecting to get a phone call, which is a bit different than what we might be used to for our admissions team. So even though they filled in a lead form, they knew what they were doing, they put in their phone number and consent to be contacted, they still didn't expect it, which I think is partially also generational, not as used to getting phone calls and all that, but also tells us that at this stage of their journey, they're certainly interested in your programs in your school, but they haven't been convinced yet. So maybe TikTok in this case is the first touch point that they learn about your programs and you pick their interest, but you're going to still have to do a little bit more work to turn a lot of these leads into enrollments, is what we're seeing. So advertising here is actually fairly similar to advertising on some other social media. So it's interest-based targeting. So again, keywords can play an impact here, particularly for its organic results, but when you're targeting with ads, it's really around audiences, demographics, things like that. So it's very good at targeting by these interests and getting your video ads to the right people. You can also do some custom audiences, like remarketing is a very powerful tool on TikTok. If you have a lot of users visiting your website, remarket them on TikTok, get them to fill in that lead form, make them remember your school and they showed interest in the past. Very good strategy. The one, again, caveat here, because TikTok's still new and it's grown really rapidly but unevenly, is that some locations seem to just be missing in the targeting. So it's good at targeting countries, states, provinces, major cities, but a lot of smaller cities haven't actually popped up into its targeting yet. So, if you're a city of 1 million and more, it should be no problem. If you're trying to target just a neighborhood in that city or just a suburb, it doesn't seem to be that all these are here yet. Even some smaller mid-sized cities don't have it. You have to target the nearest city that's larger to them. So we're expecting this to change, but that's one thing to be aware of at this stage, that the targeting in terms of locations is not perfect, because again, it looks like most of the users are in the big cities and it hasn't really grown evenly all over the place. So what you can do for your lead gen here, so TikTok has a pixel, which we recommend you set it up on all your web pages if you haven't done that yet, but we don't recommend sending TikTok users to a landing page. The results are not going to be very good. Many of them are just going to bounce because they'd rather be on the platform and not leave. So what we do recommend if you're doing lead gen is using the lead form on TikTok. It's very easy for them to fill it out, express their interest, and they can stay on the platform and remain content and hopefully engage with more of your content. But we do suggest you do with a pixel is to put it on your traditional landing pages and your program pages, build a remarketing audience, and then remarket to those people on TikTok, because there's a good chance that they found your site through Google organically. They're probably also on TikTok, so keep giving them more of your content. And what we've seen in the past, we've talked about in other webinars also, often the more touch points the student has with your content, the more likely they are going to be to register, to take, progress through just being a lead to something further, or even just making to that lead stage. So you really want to be visible in as many places as possible. And that's one of the things that TikTok is really good for. Also, another tip for paid ads is that in TikTok has this sort of unique thing where all of your ads are also organic videos, and all of your organic videos have the potential to be used as ads. So any video on your channel can be used as an ad, but any ads you run have to appear as videos on your channels. So you should also optimize these for social SEO. You should give them some proper descriptions, give them lots of hashtags to make them still be found, so you can get some additional views just by found in the algorithm without having to pay for them as sort of an added bonus. And now we have just a few minutes left of our content over here. So when I mentioned there's two sort of questions we had about schools and TikTok, is it worth it? Yes, we think it is, but also where do you get started? So what's nice about TikTok is that there's actually quite a few resources here that the platform gives brands or institutions to help them get set up and elevate their ad game on the platform. So when you have an ad account, I shared the link below where it is. There's a creative center here, which actually has tons of resources for anybody looking to create advertising, to figure out what tactics to use, what trends to follow, what hashtags to use, what keywords are being searched. There's a whole bunch of material here that you can use both for research as well as collateral to really take your videos up to the next level. So this is a really good hub to get started at, where you can look into your data and just plan and also prepare your own advertisements. So some of the things to highlight here is one, there's a keyword insight tool, which kind of solidifies that TikTok realizes it is a search engine, because Google has one of these too. And you see what keywords are trending, what, how many results they get, things like that, what are similar keywords. So you can do a bit of keyword research here, which can also be used to really help your organic content on TikTok. This tool is still kind of new, it's only come out recently, so we expect to see it get a bit better, which would be nice. There's also a section for trends where you can see what types of video content is trending, what songs are commonly used in videos, what hashtags are trending. In the example here, I guess I must have taken that during the Oscars week, so everything was Oscars related and movie related. But you can see other things around time of the year, what tags are being used. A lot of it's seasonal. They might want to have some seasonal content with your videos. But a really nice thing here when you look at any of these trends is that TikTok also highlights a number of creators who have leveraged these trends successfully. So you can see some examples of the best performing videos following some trends, whether it's a hashtag or something else, and get inspiration for what you're going to be creating yourself. Also, what is very helpful, so all the videos that perform best are ones that have sounds and or music in them. Nobody really wants to watch a silent video, but you might be wondering, how are we going to get music that goes in here? What about licenses and things like that? So TikTok actually helps us out by having a commercial sound library and music library. And both of these have filters where you can find sound and music that you can use, including in advertising purposes. So you can get some fairly high quality stock music to put in the background of all of your videos, which is great. There's quite a few in here, and it's because this platform is getting updated, there's always gonna be more resources here. So it's really good to have these to make your videos. You might have the perfect video, now you just gotta find the perfect soundtrack, put it together, and you're off to the races. And so that's sort of where we get to the end of our quick discussion here. So I'm going to turn things back over to David, because I know we still have a few minutes.
Yes, before we get to questions, I want to let everyone know that if you're wondering how your digital marketing is doing, whether you're on TikTok or not, we do offer a free digital marketing assessment. You can request that at hem.agency/assessment. Now we'll dive into some questions. First question we have, should we wait to run TikTok ads until we have a consistent and impressive TikTok feed?
So I guess in this case, I see sort of TikTok ads are often an extension of your existing sort of TikTok profile. So it really helps if you have existing content on there. So it's not impossible to run ads with only a few videos, but what you'll see is that if they engage with your content, you're gonna want them to have more content that they can come back to and also view and familiarize themselves with. So for best practice and performance, before you do ads, you're gonna wanna have some valuable, engaging videos there as well. It could be info about your school, what a day in the life looks like for a student, what cool coffee shops are nearby, things like that. So once they see the ad and engage, they can get some more information. It's probably going to be the next questions they have anyways.
Great, thank you. In the context of a business school, what content would you suggest to reach business students, for example, prospective MBA students?
Valentin, do you have some ideas that come to your mind immediately?
Not right now, but to you, I think it would be great maybe to have some testimonials from the student. It's a great opportunity to highlight like if they like the program or not. To make sure also to always include the targeted hashtags. This is essential if you want to reach out to a potential student.
And I
Yeah, and
guess, oh, go ahead, David, sorry.
yeah, I was going to say the content that we've gone over, for example, student ambassadors, trips across the campus, all of that applies to business schools because someone who's thinking of doing their MBA, they have those same questions as many other programs.
And I would say also with business schools, you might be able to get away with a bit more sleek production sometimes, just because of what the demographic might be. So maybe even some things talking about, rankings and things like that, or what some of the opportunities would be there. Could be, they're not explicitly kind of fun light things, but people might be looking for a little bit more meat after looking for a business school. So I wouldn't necessarily shy away from some of the accomplishments of the school and things like that either.
And now we got a nice tough question for us. Do you have any recommendations for a mostly online school?
Interesting. Well, I mean, definitely what we've talked about. I mean, we won't not be able to have too many student ambassadors, but it's still not impossible. I mean, there's certainly tons of benefits from, participating in an online school that are different than the campus experience. So maybe instead of, highlighting the campus, what are the benefits that, online is? There's, convenience, study your own pace. Who are the types of people that also find online to be very convenient? Working people, maybe parents who might take courses after their kids have gone to sleep. I think there's probably some, based on what your demographics are, some sort of key touch points you might be able to reach out from the things that'll connect, who are your students and why do they choose the convenience of online, could be some good content ideas.
And relevant to all programs, showcasing faculty. If you can have faculty give little mini lessons or little tidbits or a quick dive into something interesting in their subject, potential students want to know who are the instructors and they want to connect with them. In a sense, because education is intangible, they're buying the instructor, they're buying the experience with that instructor. So showcasing faculty is important. All right, that's all the time we have for questions. Thank you so much for submitting your questions. Thank you for being with us here today. As I said earlier, you will get an email with the slides and the recording. And I want to thank Alexander and Valentin for giving us insight into TikTok for schools today. Thank you, guys.
Our
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Have a good one, everyone.
Bye-bye.